Yo, champion making. So, look, we all make mistakes. Stick through this video, you'll make 5 less in your collecting journey. Of the stack of games next to me, at least 2 of them I should have known better. But I gambled anyway. Don't. One of them is going to be very contentious, I'm sure I got a lot of pushback on. And the very last one isn't too bad. It's just that this is quite a hard system to collect for nowadays. This is one of the few that you'll see quite easily, and I would just say don't bother picking it up. It's not worth the money. So, just to get on with it, the first one we've got here is Lay for the PS3. Sorry, I've got a cough in there. This game actually has like a really fascinating story behind it. It's all to do with, publishers going dark. The developers themselves were some sort of like wunderkinds at the time. They were considered to be like geniuses that had worked on like very successful titles with tiny budgets for LucasArts. They do like Star Wars flying games, I think they were. And so then, they were given at least a budget. I can't fully remember the story these days. This ended up being like one of the most, if not the most expensive game ever made at the time. It's a sort of flying game using the 6-axis controls, which is not the only reason that it's bad. I don't want to be critical of them of not being particularly good with motion control being a new technology. That's not really fair. It's everything else around it as well. It's one of the ugliest games I've ever looked at, and the PS3, this was a time when games really started to look great, so inexcusable. And it had writing, it had a lore, and it had a story that was probably amazing, but it was told terribly. It was delivered in a terrible manner. It's like exposition dumps of proper nouns that mean nothing to you. But I bet if it was told differently, actually, it probably was a really good story. I saw this for 75 pence, and my attitude was, look, if you get if you boot it up and you have like a chuckle at it, and you enjoy just flying around for a little bit, you've got your money's worth. I didn't, and for some weird reason that is me, I hated this game, and I played it for 10 hours. I played it until the end, because there's only like 8 levels, but obviously it controlled so awfully that actually getting through a level was quite a challenge. So look, I'm going to stop talking about it. Don't buy it. Now this next one I am very disappointed about, because the system that is on, the Wii, obviously is full of bad games. I'm very skeptical and very reserved about buying games for the Wii because of all the shovelware that's on there. This was such a disappointment, because the base game, or the original game, is so well loved, and so I was very excited to finally play this. And then they weified it. This says £6. I hope to God I did not pay £6 for this. I'm hoping that's a sticker from elsewhere, but I probably did. They weified it. And it's so bizarre. I think they did do some work on it, because it was quite a good looking game, to its credit. But that was about all the touching up they did of it, other than to just at points, so you sort of wander around as a kid and you just use controls as normal. They're a normal control scheme, cool. Then as soon as you become this character and have to fly around and stuff, suddenly it's all motion controls, and it barely works, and it's very difficult, it's very frustrating. I tried twice to play this, and I was like, look man, you are wasting your life. So, no, I strongly recommend picking up Knights. It's certainly for £6. God, I hope I didn't pay that much. This next game is the one that I said is gonna maybe cause some upset, cause some unrest. And that is, I mean, maybe not. As I've said in another video, I have sensed a bit of a pushback finally developing around this, so I'm hoping that, you know, I'll be preaching at least to some choir members. It's Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I knew this game was not going to be what we all thought it was going to be. That much was clear from the timeline, where they effectively... So, I remember they had released a trailer about 18 months before release, and this was the trailer that everybody hated. They were like, oh my god, there's like 2 Pokemon on screen and they're moving at like 5 frames per second. How is this game going to run? They worked on that. Oh my god, no, that was only a year before release. Yeah, it was a year before release. They dropped another trailer 6 months later, which basically showed the game running as we see it now. And then, rather than push the game back, they spent the next 6 months working on content, and the content is just lazy nothing. It's all fetch quests, it's all do you have this Pokemon in your party? It's just, it's crap, to be blunt about it. It's just really nothing stuff. Just a desperate excuse to say like, well look, there is content there. The way the dex works is pretty interesting in this. The throwing mechanics, people massively oversell this stuff, and I wonder like how unfamiliar they are with the Pokemon series, because obviously it has the opportunity to bring in lots of casuals. I wonder how familiar they are with just general gaming concepts when they look at this game and the throwing mechanic, and it's like, oh, you're playing as the trainer now, and really it's all about how you throw the ball. And like I said, Pokemon Go, the Pokemon Let's Go games, I was like, fundamentally, I don't know what you think is that different about those games to this one. Yeah, the battling was terrible, the content was terrible. It's just a bad game. Oh, and again, as I mentioned in the Pokemon tier list one, it's full of bugs. It's full of bugs, and it gets no criticism for it. But for some reason, Violet and Scarlet just got completely railed for it. And I just think, like, some consistency here, guys. Like, either the bugs are intolerable, in which case they apply here, or they're not, in which case don't make a fuss of them in the other game. But that's me, on my high horse. Right, this next game will bring me thoroughly back down, because buying this was entirely my own mistake. Like, what an idiot I was, thinking anything other than this. But you know what, I didn't think this would be a good game, but I thought I might enjoy it. One of those, because it was all nostalgia. It was Neopets Puzzle Adventure. And look, I didn't think this was going to be good, like I said, but I had kind of been having a hankering for something to do with Neopets. Like, I was even considering just going back on the site, which is still running somehow. Just because I grew up at that time when the Neopet spike was happening, and I was having like just a bit of a feeling like, well, you know, I kind of just want to look at those little critters again and play those crappy little games again. And I thought, okay, cool, well this will be some sort of semblance of that. And it isn't, to be honest. It is just, basically, you can see it there, it's basically just Othello. But with like slightly different rule sets put on there. I know, it kind of because they, I mean, yeah, it does say specifically mini games. You know, there's a plural there. There's kind of a suggestion throughout that you're going to be doing more than just playing this one game over and over and over again, which is true in exactly 2 instances, which I think almost like a Tetris and almost like a Match 3 or something. I can't remember at this point, but I remember them standing out and being like, why are they in here at this point, you know, when you're most of the way through the game? Because again, for some reason, I played this through to completion. I don't know what is wrong with me. But at some point, yeah, just very late in the game, they just randomly threw 2 different other game types in, and you only played each of them once. It's just, you know, it's emblematic of just the entire absence of design of what was going on here. And worst of all, there weren't even really any Neopets. It was like 4 to pick from, if I remember right. Very little in the way of customization, which again is, you know, is something that you would want out of a Neopets game. Sure, you do get to see a bunch of the Neopets in there as NPCs, but then it's like, why don't you make those available? Since you've made the models anyway, just make them playable. It's just a bad game. And then finally, just to finish up here, look, this game isn't too bad. It's Mario and Yoshi. Sometimes it's called Yoshi's Cookie if you're not in PAL region. This game is fine. It's just one mini game basically. I wouldn't know what the overarching kind of genre of this is. I mean, it's obviously like some sort of puzzle, but it's like a dropping tile kind of game. I used to see a couple of them back around this kind of era, and it doesn't deserve a cart all to itself. There's nothing particularly Mario about it, nothing particularly Yoshi about it, but it'll command a premium for that branding. Like, I paid 4 or 5 quid for this, and again, it's basically the entirety of it is just one mini game, and yeah, it's just not worth it. I would say it's not worth it. Depends if you're like a Mario collector or whatever and you want completionist for that reason. But if you're just looking for general games to pick up and play, then yeah, I would say pick something up over that one. Right. I think I'll wrap this up here. I don't know. Tell me about your worst games or your worst pickups anyway. Any particularly bad deals that you've run across, and just in general talk video games to me.